different. Good afternoon and welcome. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show. Not on 93.3 Real Talk Radio, but definitely on Warchant TV and the YouTube channel. Some technical difficulties mean we are straight up live. For those of you that are on or in the chat, I should say, come on in, man. We're just chit-chatting about an hour straight, no commercials. Tom and myself straight through at the normal Jeff Cameron Show hour. And this is live. This is not taped. So we can read questions. We can get to it, all the stuff. But you don't want to get bogged down in this, but I do feel like the need to kind of explain some things here. The station is locally owned and operated. That is a recent development within the last 2 months, and we're excited about that. And because it's local and because there was ownership changing hands and a bunch of different things, new equipment, new stuff, it's all happening. I've kind of hinted at it several times. And when it's all done, it's going to be great. But in the interim, you occasionally get gremlins and you get things that you're trying to work through, and that can affect the on-air product on the airwaves. We don't want to miss shows. We're doing the Jeff Cameron Show regardless. That's the way it works. I mean, it's football season. We don't want to miss. We want to be able to do things. So if anytime radio has a hiccup of any kind and there's a chance that we're going to be affected, then we're coming straight here. We're just going to do a live pod, a live video, and get after it the way we normally would. So it is the Jeff Cameron Show at its normal time. This is live. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to join the conversation. Let's have a good YouTube show and pod, and we'll get after it. We'll get after it. You know, by the way, Tom, now that we're caught up there, let's do this. I've pointed this out before. You probably noticed it today. I assume you because you have your hand in everything that goes on here at Warchant. You watched Mike Norvell's presser today, availability today.
I did, yes, and the injury stuff, you can find that on all our channels. I cut that up so you could get those 30 seconds of nuggets about Squirrel White and LaWayne McCoy and Kevin Wynn, and yes, I watched the rest of the presser as well.
Well, so I'll talk about that. That's all good news. There's nothing really to catch up on other than everything's going swimmingly. It looks like LaWayne McCoy is going to play. He'll be on a pitch count, so he's finally back. It will be nice to see him. I imagine he'll get plenty of work. I don't know what that pitch count is going to be, but he'll have opportunities because this is a game that Florida State is heavily favored in, to say the least. But Juju Wynn being nearly all the way back, don't think he plays this Saturday. Doesn't sound like he will, but it looks like he may be a go for Virginia at this point. It would be at the very least good for him to get reps in before Florida State takes on Miami. So that's good news. Squirrel White, might play on Saturday, might not. I don't know why you'd play him, frankly, with LaWayne McCoy being back. And I mean, maybe just a couple of reps here or there for Squirrel, but it looks like he could, if he needed to play, is what it sounds like to me, he could play. But I don't think you need him to play, so I wouldn't play him. Most of everything you hear right now is very, very good in regards to Florida State's health as they prepare for this game. But I wanted to take it a step further because it is just so obvious to me watching Mike Norvell every time he conducts one of these availabilities now. He is so much happier. And I don't mean happier like, well, of course he's happy, Jeff. They're not effing over on the season. They're not on their way to a 2-10 campaign. He's going to be happier. No, man, I think this role suits him very well. I think that being able to have your hands on every facet of your program, but not being burdened by certain other aspects of your program, has been infinitely helpful to him. I don't want to read too much into it. I'm not a doctor or a therapist or psychiatrist, but we all have eyes, and we can tell what body language is going on. We can tell by somebody's complexion whether or not they're doing well or they're feeling well, whether they look beleaguered and tired and worn down or not, right? I mean, across the board, that guy is in a good place. He's in a good place when he talks about the players. He's in a good place when he talks about the coaches. He's in a good place when he's talking about recruiting. He's in a good place where he's able to highlight certain aspects of what the organization's doing and what he's excited about. I just think it's night and day. And again, I understand that we were watching him go through a crisis last year, a career meltdown, an emergency of sorts. And so nobody is going to be in a great mood. Nobody's going to be, feeling chipper as they talk to anybody about aspects of a disaster that they're trying to fix. But it seems to go above and beyond that to me. I noticed it. This is the third time this year that I've noticed it. And just today, again, a guy's in a really good place. And I can't help but think that rubs off on everybody involved in the program, where anytime you get a chance to sit across from the guy that's running it, he seems engaged. He seems interested. He seems particular on the details. It's like, going to sit down with a buddy of yours and wanting to confide in him or her about something going on in your life. And you get the real sense that they're paying attention. They care. They're looking into your eyes. They're listening carefully to what you have to say, as opposed to somebody who's passively listening, who's distracted with their own problems. And we've all been there. We've probably been that person to somebody else too. But when you're actively engaged. And it just seems to me like he's in a good mood. He's in a good place. Meet the Knoll, writes. Mike is bouncing between looking hungover and overjoyed in his press conferences, but hungover in a fun way, not a sad way. Yeah. And hungover would seem a little beleaguered, usually, at least when I'm hungover. Euphoric, maybe, in that sense. Maybe the way you were hungover in your youth.
Well, the good kind of tired, right? It's like it caused good trouble. Yeah. Have some good tired to you. He does have that presence about him on the sidelines as well during the games. We've only seen 2 games, and you could see it better on TV. Even though I'm speaking of something intangible, it's just when they cut to Tony White and they cut to Mike Norvell and they cut to Gus Malzahn, and you watch them walking past one another. It's almost jarring in a sense, because when I watch the games on television, I see structures. They're not actually physically there, but I see 3 different structures where the offense has its own wing of the sideline and operation, and the defense feels as though it's got its own wing of the operation. And there's Mike Norvell at the head of it all. He's the Capitol building of the whole operation, but it feels like it's its own deal, which is the way it feels when I watch my professional team for the most part. Todd Bowles calls plays for the Bucs, and yet I feel like there's a structure for the offense that's like in this totally different place. And for a lot of college football and pro teams, that's been the reality forever and a day. I'm sure that if you're a Clemson fan, as dismayed as you are in this moment, in the good times for Dabo, you didn't watch him on the sidelines and think offense. You didn't watch him on the sidelines and think defense. You thought he's the head man. Even for Bama fans with Nick Saban, he was a defensive mastermind, but he had his DC. I can see that now. It projects through the television screen, and I think it's that type of existence for Mike Norvell that allows for him to be able to handle a Monday and a Tuesday a little bit better than he used to be able to handle a Monday or a Tuesday where he's coming off of play calling work.
Yeah, and he's able to better influence and inform every aspect of his program. And right now he's got things that you're working on. It's great to work on something. I can only imagine. I've never known this. You have in your younger days. I've never known what it's like to be a scratch golfer. But I think it would be a lot easier to work on your game as a scratch golfer, because now you're striving for the kind of small, detailed things that would allow you to be a subpar, a golfer that shoots in the 60s, as opposed to the guy trying to break 100, where there's 100 things that just piss you off every time you go out to play because you're bad at so many aspects of the golf game. And there's a world of difference. Both require your attention. Both are things that require a lot of work. It's just easier when the thing that you're working on is striving for perfection and or excellence at the highest level, as opposed to just not being an embarrassment. And so for him now, I think he's got a real good football team. We've said that this week. We said it last week. I understand they've got so many more big games that lay in wait, and that will tell us just how good or not they are. But I think they are a good football team. It's just a question of, are they an elite football team? Are they the kind of football team that's going to make the college football playoff? Are they the kind of football team that could win a national championship? I mean, dare to dream, guys. So, that they're working towards something a little bit different than we thought they might be working towards before the year started.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I think we've all had this experience in our lifetimes in whatever field we work in. We've had office environments or whatever, storefronts, where people were good at their job all around you, either your assistants or your colleagues or even your supervisor, where they were good. And then ones where it was just every day was going to be a new adventure. Which one's more exhausting? Like, yeah, the one where every day is going to be a brand new adventure. But if you've got people that you can trust at your side, or in Mike Norvell's case, you've got subordinates who are doing their jobs, and on top of the fact, add to the storefront or the business, you got a good product to sell. Holy cow. I mean, that could not get more different than last year. We all understand that, but just think about his drive to work each day. He knows he's got coordinators who are going to kick ass and do their job, and he knows he's got some players who are going to try really hard and care to play well and care to play for each other. That's a much different drive to the office than last year. And I think that's why he was getting more and more confident as preseason camp was going on. He was trying to quell it because he heard his own mistakes last year. He heard himself talk and say things like All-American when kids were not All-American quality and most athletic this or that. But you could hear the confidence build before the kickoff against Alabama. He was exuding, we got something for you. We've got a little something for you. I don't think he predicted that score, but he knew that this team had a little bit of sandpaper to it. And what a different drive that is for him to go to the office every day.
That's a different drive for you and I to go to the office every day, watching a team that gives a damn and doesn't suck.
We're all thankful for our commutes to our different places of business.
I'm thankful for my commute from the kitchen to the bedroom when I know the team doesn't suck. It doesn't. I mean, just every aspect of your life, you're like, I got to make a run to Publix. Boy, it's great not to suck. I mean, that's where everything. Oh, I forgot. I got to call my dad. Sure, it's nice that O's don't suck. Where's that phone? I mean, it's just like everything that you do right now is fantastic and fun. It's refreshing, certainly on the heels of last year, but it's also interesting. It's also fun to kind of document, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. I mean, you guys in the chat are making me laugh. You've become another version of me, checking on dudes' hair, checking on people's hair. Are they living a lie or not? Now, I will forgive the hair games we're witnessing play out right here with Mike Norvell, because this is not living a lie to the extent that a bald man suddenly has a thick mane. It's not the same as, all right, I'm pretty sure he was balding badly and now has the thickest set of hair I've ever seen, you liar. This is a little different. This isn't we go from bald to an isthmus to a whole, we remember seeing all the different stages. What Mike's doing here is little shampoo loving. You can get that at Publix. That's a little, I've got white hair. I prefer it to be less white. Here we go. A little just for men action. And next thing you know, my hair is magically darker. Probably also brought on by far less stress of not sucking at football. But I would just say this. Jimbo Island, never forget. That's good. I would just tell you this. If you've got white hair like he does, it's a good look. Leave it be. The white hair looked good on him. He didn't need to. He was salt and pepper for the most part. Now he's going mostly pepper. Come on, Mike. Let it go, buddy. It's all right to be gray. At least you got a full set of hair. You're lucky. Do you have the upper hand as far as coaching versus everyone left on our schedule? Do we have the upper hand versus coaching? Oh, there's some really good coaches out there. I think we may have better players than a lot of the teams that we face in the weeks to come. I certainly think that I'm not going to belittle Clemson's staff, whatever they're going through right now. I mean, they've been really good. Dabo's done a great job at Clemson, and there's no getting around that. I actually like their hire in the offseason. They seemingly have other types of problems. Tom and I did the bonus hour today because we weren't sure what was going to become of the show today, the live version. And so we talk a lot about that. I'll let you guys listen to that bonus hour. Talk a lot about some of the problems going on at Clemson and with Dabo Swinney and some of the evidence that suggests that there's real problems coming down the line. But he's, obviously he's been great. And again, I can go through this league and point to some really good coaches. So I don't know if we're going to out coach everybody we play, but we may have better players and we may have a better team, and they are coached extremely well. So that makes me happy.
I just love the spirit of this question. This is a great question, because it means obviously that Florida State has done something to make you think that we're well coached. And it's more than just the Alabama win. It's the nature by which they won that Alabama game. You look at depth on defense, 25 guys that they're comfortable playing in that setting when the game is in touch pretty much the whole game. That tells you that they coached their asses off to get those guys prepared to do their jobs with a brand new scheme that could not have been more different than the predecessor scheme. And a lot of those kids were under Adam Fuller and were coached into that 4-2-5 press man stuff. And instead, they get into Tony White's multiple fronts, multiple defense, multiple coverages, which means what? Multiple rules. There's a lot of stuff that you need to learn in order to be able to handle that. So you've got to unlearn and then learn. There were some kids who were brought in who understood the defense. That makes sense that Jerry Wilson was ready to go because of his past, and Stephon Thompson, and down the line we go. But James Williams. But to have that many guys ready for the test like Alabama and feel comfortable enough as a coach when you don't have to play that many dudes, that you do play that many guys, that's really impressive from a coaching standpoint. And then on offense, they didn't have all 11 guys to work with, but for a couple of weeks before the Bama game. So in terms of accomplishments for the coaching staff, you can now put that accomplishment of quick turnaround, especially so for the offense, and depth building from places that we didn't expect to see depth, two giant feathers in the cap of Florida State as a coaching venture, which is pretty cool, because last year you felt the opposite. And even in 2023, to a degree, you thought, I don't know, that roadie up at Clemson, were they prepared offensively for the test they were about to see? I'm not so sure. Like, there were moments and pockets of even success where you wondered about Florida State being elite from a coaching standpoint. This has been an elite start for both those coordinators.
Yeah, they've come out the gate swinging. They've done a good job of getting the players to certainly buy in and play hard and play really smart too. That's the part of it. I did a guest appearance on a show covering the SEC today, and they were asking me about Florida State's win and over Alabama and some other stuff. But they were asking for what's been the biggest turnaround. I said, well, there's been so many, but I think for starters, how quickly these coordinators were able to get these players to understand their offense, understand their defense, play fast, play smart, play well together. They were given limited time. I brought this up yesterday on Headlines. Ira and I were talking about it. Ira did point out that they had plenty of mental reps and plenty of walkthroughs and things like that. But, of course, coaches are always nervous until they get out there live, until they can really see them in action. And I think we walked away from the Alabama game, all of us, saying, holy moly, this is like they've run these two systems their whole life. Everybody was so comfortable with their role and what they were to do based on their principles. I was blown away by that, and I continue to be. So that is good coaching, and that is a reason to be excited moving forward. Yeah, I like getting into games and talking about adjustments within a game. I like watching the way teams exploit each other's weaknesses or their own strengths, and then getting into the X's and O's of that is a lot more fun, because then it's you're no longer playing, again, I keep having to use golf analogies. When you're on the course playing around at golf, you don't want to be playing golf swing. You want to play golf. You want to play the strategy. You want to talk about why you hit where you did and what were the reasons for it, based on everything from conditions to lie to whatever it might be. You can't do that if you're worried about your golf swing. Now you're not playing golf, you're playing golf swing. Well, if your football team doesn't know what it's doing and it's not coordinated, you can't really much get into the strategy of how you want to attack certain things, because you don't know what the hell it is you are. You don't even know what you can and can't do. There were times a year ago where I felt like they don't have any idea what they do well. They don't know how to teach anything new. We're watching the same thing over and over and over again. There's no real way to exploit anything because you're too worried about your self-inflicted wounds. You're too worried about putting out fires in the course of a game when things are going wrong. Now you're able to line up and play football. Everybody understands their keys. Everybody understands what it is they're supposed to do and why. They communicate those things in-game pre-snap. You see this real confidence with which the offense is executing and the defense is executing. Now we're playing football. Now we're in a situation where, okay, I can create, I can react, I can do a lot of things within the game because I trust that they have a strong understanding of what it is we are and why we do what we do and what those rules are. That's huge, huge.
Yeah, a lot of times across coaching staffs, it's not just the most previous one. You'd see thinking steps instead of playing steps. You could see it. I mean,
Mhm.
linebacker level is an easy place to look on the defensive side of the ball, where there's a hesitation. You can tell, do I stay or do I go? That type of energy when I'm sure most of us are yelling at the screen, go, move, for the love of God, do something.
Yeah.
That's the LaMarcus Joyner interception at Clemson. He was not in the right place.
No.
He did not follow the scheme to a T that Jeremy Pruitt dialed up on that play. But he went somewhere at 100 miles an hour, and that was good because it ended up being an interception. Last year for Florida State, you saw guys just stuck in the mud. Sometimes it was malaise, and sometimes it was they're not trained. They don't know what to do, which is crazy because that defense had been run for years and years and years, and you hadn't cultivated other options. Sight adjust for receivers is another place that you can look. On offense, an easy spot to see where if a coach is yelling at a receiver as they're coming off the field because there's an incompletion. Jimbo used to do this all the time based upon the rules that they have for where the corner and the safety are. Did you run your route to the proper place? And so now you got receivers counting their steps, and you can tell with the way that they get in and out of their breaks, it's so mechanical. But Florida State has been free-flowing on both sides of the ball. It has just been free and physical. And to the point that we're just expecting that week in, week out. Honestly, you really shouldn't expect things like that so quickly after one or two games, but they've been so fundamental about the way that they're reinforcing their change that as we go into Kent, I mean, the message boards are talking about why is it only 45.5 as a spread? Gus is going to want to drop 70. What gives there? I mean, it's amazing how quickly it can turn.
Well, Gus does like to do that. He has a history of running it up on people. He's ruthless in that way, and I'm fine with it. I don't really care, especially after all that we went through a year ago. I want to run it up on everybody we ever play. Every football game I ever watch, if you have a chance to run it up, I want him to do it from here on out. But that said, Kent should be slightly better than East Texas A&M, only slightly. And then the other thing I would tell you is that I do think they're going to be – well, I think they're going to be very liberal with how many guys they play. Again, we're seeing that trend. But the good news is those guys that come in all play really hard. They all play heady football. They all seem to cheer each other on and care deeply that they do it right. So you won't get a letdown in terms of the intensity and the focus. It'll just be a different caliber of player based on the depth chart.
Well, which means to me that you've arrived on defense, because if anybody lets up because you played your second cupcake or directional school in 3 weeks' time with a bye in the middle, there's other options available. They've already created those. So, you cannot. Once you get to that level of depth, you literally cannot half step because somebody else has proven that
take your job,
to do what you do. I think the only place that probably hasn't happened yet is wide receiver. But with LaWayne McCoy being back on a pitch count this weekend, he has another opportunity, still more opportunities for younger receivers and a veteran guy like Gavin Blackwell to be the best of the rest. I mean, that's an interesting subplot this weekend. But, yeah, Gus's tendency to try and score as much as he possibly can. The fact that Florida State has a backup quarterback battle, I think also helps you when you're talking about what you can expect for Florida State's output this weekend. The game total of 55.5 is the one to me that I look at. I'm like, really? That's it?
I already bet the over.
Yeah, me too.
In fact, tomorrow's going to be fun. We'll go back through and catch up on all the Redemption Thursday bets for the year, and I'll give you where I'm at. I know I have a winning record, which is nice, but we'll get into that. But also, I was surprised by about 5 different lines this week. You're starting to get a handle on some things right now. You're starting to get a pretty good feel for some things. There's some mystery still that remain. It's early, but you're kind of, I see what you are or are not right now. Yeah, it's true. I hope the snub changed Norvell's outlook on sportsmanship and respect for the opponent. I think Mike will probably, to some degree, and that's, by the way, a legitimate conversation. That's not a sort of, screw the world, go scorched earth because we got screwed conversation. That's no, you must always be impressing. This is a vanity affair, a TV show, if you will. They've made it abundantly clear that they will forsake integrity for the greater plot twist. So because of that, you must always be putting your best foot forward. You must always be clamoring for camera time. There are also financial incentives to whoop people's ass ruthlessly. Let's not forget that if you can make yourself, and we're probably a long way from being this, but if you can make yourself the hated giant in the sport, you will play in a ton of very high-profile games. And that, in turn, based on the new initiatives and the lawsuit having been won by Florida State in the ACC, it will make you a lot of money. So go be the biggest bully possible at all times. Increase your profile so that some guy in Tacoma is like, what is wrong with them and those folks in Tallahassee? I mean, Mike's out here beating people by 80 for no good reason. Oh, we've got a good reason. Every week we got a reason for that ass. And it goes back to what happened at the end of 23. And here's another reason that we're going to score again in the fourth quarter. Over and over and over again.
They look
Run it up.
They look like a sadistic, coked up Jack Nicholson in The Departed with the red eyes. Like,
yeah.
They just want more. They're yelling blood in the stands.
Yeah, do it, because you're encouraging so many guys to compete, to play hard, to stay focused, to be intense, to create what is a characteristic of your club. You know, there's that window there, that stretch where LSU had a terrifying defense for about 5 to 7 years there, where you'd watch the games, and you and I talked about this at the time, like, God, they act like they hate the other team. They act like they hate each other. They're just flying around trying to take people's heads off. Every hit is borderline illegal. I feel like there's a lot of times I feel like throwing the flag from my couch. It's so violent. And then we found out there was an interview that was done, and I remember the players were, I think it was Honey Badger, was talking about, yeah, well, that's created in practice because everybody wants to start, and we're all 4 or 5 star blue chip guys, and we all think we're better than the other guy that's trying to take my position. So F all that, man. You're not taking my position, so everybody just plays 1,000 miles per hour at all times. Yes, exactly. That's what you want. You want the guy that's not playing, who's behind Ashland Barker, to go, no, I love Ashland, but screw him. I want to play. And you want that level of intensity at all times, especially on defense. But I think it works for sort of a characteristic of your team. And that travels, that always shows up. That creates competition. Obviously, we know how competitions benefit teams. You got to have it throughout the week. It's a tough season. You only get real 12 opportunities to play in games. You hear all the great teams, and that includes Florida State, former Florida State players, especially on the dynastic teams of the 90s, talk about, well, the games were kind of easy because we were ruthless in practice against one another. I mean, this was a fierce competition where Mickey was out for blood in practice. So by the time we got to the games, it's almost like, they don't say these words, but you can hear the contempt in their voice for their opponent. Like, what are you doing on the same field with this team? You don't belong here. It's beautiful.
There's an argument in the chat right now about it. So we've got, I'm cool with calling off the Dogs after 10 touchdowns. Jeff, would you be for calling off the Dogs versus Kent State? And Meet the Knoll says, no, I want to set records that have stood for decades. So there's a little bit of difference of opinion in there, but it's nice to be talking about said things and doing so because that Florida State gets there honestly. Last year, Florida State did blow out one of its opponents, but we all knew what Florida State was. Lucky to be playing them because we really needed a win, just even if it was a paper win only. The way they arrived at it against East Texas A&M is totally different than the way that they arrived at their FCS blowout last year. It's for the right reasons. It's why you could start to put backups in the second quarter. I tend to agree that there is an unofficial ceiling at around 73, 77 points, where I think everybody kind of understands we're not getting into the 80s here. Unless we have a pick six that I can't turn down, we're not going into the 80s or certainly not the 90s because Florida State last game could have scored 120, 130 if they wanted to.
I will say, and I should have made it clear, there is a difference between playing FCS teams and FBS teams. And I know that the difference between East Texas A&M and Kent State may be marginal. Like if these two played, they may be the same type team. That's unfortunate for Kent State to be that far down the rung on the FBS, but that's kind of where they are. But the reason that I have far more sympathy for the FCS, and I might, call off the Dogs, is they have far fewer scholarships. They don't have the manpower to compete with you. First of all, they're not the caliber of player, but secondly, they quite literally don't have the resources. They don't have the players. They don't have the quality or the depth of the players, and they don't have the number of the players. So, yeah, I'm empathetic to that cause. Like, you're writing them a check to take that ass beating. And so you go ahead and deliver that ass beating. But let's do so within reason, based on the fact that you kind of understand what's
right.
what.
That coach would have the right to say, really, 84, coach, 84. Come on now. Yeah. But I do think 70 is totally fine. 77 even. That's where all right. A little uncomfortable at 77, but 77 is still acceptable.
Charles, I interviewed Coach Norvell in spring at the meetings over the summer. I guess summer, spring football in Charlotte. And I've interviewed Mike many times. I know that a lot of you have clamored for the weekly interview to return. I would love for the weekly coaches interview to return. I did one for 20 years with the head coach at Florida State, no matter who it was. But that's not of my doing. And frankly, I've pointed this out before too. It's not something I'm mad at Mike Norvell about either. There are reasons that it's just not worth getting into, but I would love to have that be a weekly thing. And I think Mike would probably be up for it. Mike and I have a good relationship. I'm able to reach out to Mike and talk to him when I need to. And maybe at some point it'll come back. I'll give it a go. We'll keep trying. We'll keep trying to get that worked out, but there's just some stuff there that would bore you to get into. But I do see Spartan wants 78 points this week, and I'm kind of with you. I wouldn't mind 83.
Okay, so the FBS, you're good with 80s against the Kent.
If you're FBS, you come take that ass beating now. It's a big check you're getting. You come take that ass beating now. As long as you come to it honestly, meaning that's a fourth stringer out there slinging it about. That's somebody as far down the depth chart as could possibly be. That's a walk-on who just scored against you. What do you want me to do? I mean, that guy played at like a private school in some small Maryland town. It was like 7-on-7. I never even thought he was going to ever get in the game. What am I supposed to do? So,
yeah, I'd love for this to be 2013 again, where Vegas just can't set a large enough number each week. And they're like, oh, I mean, my God, okay, 17.5. They're playing the number 10 team in the country. Well, they won by 38. Well, okay. We don't know what to do with this team. That would be great because everybody's happy on every level possible. I do think that, again, just looking at how the Sharps are trying to tell you the story of the game, the only reason the total's at 55.5 is because I believe that Florida State has a short week the next week, so they know that Florida State is going to deploy the reserves earlier. The thing is, for Florida State offensively, you still have a lot of battles you're trying to sort out at a lot of key positions, quarterback, tight end, receiver, that Gov's going to continue to call it, and it doesn't look like Kent can cover very well in the secondary. So I think you could have a lot of aerial shots if Gus wants those, but it could be one of those deals where you got walk-ons versus Kent's first team, and at that point, I don't know. I just think the 55 is awfully low, even if we're trying to get guys out of the game.
Yeah, they're telling you actually, based on the spread and the total, that they think it's either 55-0 or 45-10, right? Isn't that what they're telling you? Somewhere there,
yeah.
Based on our
Well, the team total over for Florida State is 45.5. The game total is 55. So yes, yeah.
They're telling you it's 45-10. Basically, is the bet they want you to make.
Yeah.
Which
would be a cover. Which would be a cover for Kent
by a half point. But the point is that.
But yeah, I see what you're. Yeah.
But the point I'm making is that you can agree or disagree. You can think Florida State's going to cover the spread and give us more points in your prediction. You can say 48-7 if you want. However you want to go about the process and deciding with the hook, you decide to go with how you're going to do it. But I would just tell you this: I have a hard time believing Florida State's going to score less than 55 points themselves. Hence, you and I betting the over. Ding, ding,
right.
Ding, ding, ding.
I think we'll get there through Florida State side of the bet, and then you defend yourself against any second half nonsense. Like, for example, Texas Tech was up 48 at the break, and the final margin against this very Kent State team, the final margin was 48 because they played to a 14-14 tie. Doesn't matter that reserves go in. It counts the same from a spread standpoint. So you could say that, well, they could have beat them by 100. Sure. But the bet was whatever the bet was, and I would prefer to defend against that just in case, and I'll just take the win on the over and not mess with that spread.
Somebody asked a question about being sure we would return to some sort of goodness. I think it was Michael. Yeah, here it is. In the darkness of past, I worried tremendously. You're becoming the next Nebraska. You guys were a light in the darkness saying that wouldn't happen to us. How were you so confident and correct? And thank you for getting us through the bad times. We get a lot wrong. We get a lot right and everything in between. It's all documented. But I just think Florida State is one of the halves in the sport. And you're going to say, well, so was Nebraska. And they were. But the problem they had is they lived in a rust belt and nobody's moving to Nebraska. And Florida is a fertile ground for recruiting, and it is a population hub. So you're always going to, right in your own backyard, have access to elite talent. And you can play football here year-round. And I just think that is part and parcel to this region. It's not just Florida, but it's the Southeast in general. Like, I think that there are always going to be good players in Texas. There's always going to be good players in Florida and Georgia and Louisiana and Alabama. And you're going to have access. I mean, South Florida alone has a surplus of elite players, and they get divvied up between Miami, Florida, and Florida State, whichever one happens to be succeeding at the time. And if they're all whooping ass, they still get their fair share from just South Florida alone. Let alone where I grew up and played in Tampa, St. Pete, or over in Orlando or Jacksonville, and then, of course, on into Georgia where there's a ton of talent. They're in a fertile place, and again, people ain't moving to Nebraska. So it's interesting what happened in Nebraska. Also, Nebraska lost their identity. And they completely chose, when they hired Bill Callahan, to go away from their identity. So Tom Osborne retires. They stay within the fold. They elevate from within the fold. They get restless. College football is changing. The passing game is becoming more of a thing. Callahan has a pro background. They go pro style. They hire Bill Callahan, bring him in. They lose the triple option, which was their identity. And I think they have suffered greatly ever since. You know, in that region of the country, just to finish my answer here, a lot of teams, because of the weather, ran what Nebraska ran at the university level. So the high schools ran the same system as the college team. So you were building players who had come up in a system from their peewee years on up, running exactly what Nebraska ran. And they would frequently not win any sort of recruiting title. They wouldn't be routinely number one, number two, number three in recruiting. What they were was some, good old farm-fed, huge offensive linemen that had been blocking for that system forever. And then they'd go and get them a Tommy Frazier out of the state of Florida to run that system at quarterback, right? So now you go find your elite athlete from one of the fertile recruiting grounds, be it California, Florida, Texas, somewhere in there, and then you surround them with all these corn-fed monsters who've been running the freaking system forever, and they went away from it.
It was like having a continuous farm system in the major leagues, where the training they get at single A or New York Penn low A is what they get, all the way up the ranks. And so there's consistency of message. That was a nice advantage for them to have. And obviously, yes, they ran away from it. I was merely but an intern and a fill-in at the time that Jimbo took over and was the head coach in waiting and was in 2010 first-year head coach. I was worried about Florida State's long-term existence at that point. But once Jimbo was able to achieve what he achieved, I wasn't worried anymore, because it proved that you were not a one-horse town. You could do it with multiple people. And obviously since then, Florida State has been undefeated again under Mike Norvell. And I would look at it this way. You can't be Nebraska at this point. I'm not saying never say never, but even if you were stuck in the ACC, which I don't believe Florida State is, and obviously it's got very cheap to get out of this conference, with the TV and the success initiatives set up the way they are, if you were stuck here another 6 years, not ideal, but your path to the playoff and relevance is with that money that you're going to get from the TV ratings is fixed. So that existential danger we felt when Florida State was negotiating for its life behind the scenes in these lawsuits and litigating for its life while going 2-10, we came out of that darkness just fine now. It's okay. You can now say that we are free from danger of being Nebraska, or even, I believe, Miami, which was 20 years irrelevant in a fertile recruiting ground. thanks to what's happened litigation-wise, and then thanks to the decisions that Mike Norvell made in the last year, which have turned up very, very nicely.
It's odd to say this because it was so far removed from all of the fruitless seasons that Nebraska had. But I think the first time that I recognized the depth of Nebraska's problem was when one of their own, Trev Alberts, who was the athletic director at the time and has a love for Nebraska that is almost uncomfortable. When he chose to leave to go to Texas A&M to be their athletic director, I thought, oh, no. Even the most cornhusker of all the cornhuskers doesn't believe that they can be great. He doesn't believe that they can be elite. He left to go to a Texas A&M program that's never won anything. And I know A&M's in the SEC, and A&M has unbelievable facilities and more money than most all the other schools that play the sport. So there's a lot of people banking that someday, somehow that's going to lead to some great success, and maybe it will, but they haven't had it yet. A good season here or there, but nothing that, changes the game and changes their history. To see that happen, I thought, oh, wow, that's got to be a desperate set of circumstances to leave your alma mater where you were an All-American, that you led to, the great game against Florida State in the national championship. Trev played great in that game, by the way. And then they went on in the 90s to kind of take over the decade. Like, that's shocking to me anyhow. So that speaks volumes about their situation. And what that leads me to, which freshman on the team has the best shot of being an NFL player? I got to go with the Twins. They could be dominant. We'll get to that in a second, Garrett. What that leads me to is the situation with UCLA. And there have been little moments here and there where UCLA has really mattered and had some great seasons. But by and large in my lifetime, they've been pretty fleeting and average at best. And yesterday and the day before, it came up with Tony White being our defensive coordinator. Would it be short-lived? Would they go after him? What's that going to look like? Tom, in the last 24 hours, we talk about the state of a program and where it's at, where it needs to get to, how far away are they? We look just 2 hours down the road. What's Florida going to be by season's end? Will their head coach be in place? How good is Miami? Is Florida State all the way back? Et cetera. There have been a bunch of articles of people who either covered the old Pac-12 and are certainly intimately familiar with the programs that left that conference when it dissolved and went to the Big Ten, and certainly know the historical backdrop of which they're writing about. And they say they've never seen UCLA in such a state of disrepair, that they can't fathom why anybody at this point would want that job, that it's that bad, that they are so far behind, that it's going to take a Herculean lift, that for whatever reason, the program has decided not to invest in any way, shape, or form that comparable to what is required for you to win in big-time college football now. That the money's gone elsewhere, that it's gone to basketball, that it's gone to other sports, that it's gone to facilities, that it hasn't gone into bringing in players, NIL budgets, coaching staff, you name it. If that's the case, then, man, it does buoy me to think that Tony will have no choice if he is offered the job. I don't know what direction they're going to go. They may go an offensive-minded coach. They may go a guy that's been a head coach before, since the guy they just hired and now fired was a first-time head coach at that level. I don't know, but, man, that's something to think about. It makes me excited to think that we could dodge a bullet there, because, honestly, I just assumed that if they reached out to a former team captain and alumnus, that he would say yes, and now it just sounds like UCLA is a disaster.
It sounds like when they agree to hire their new head coach, that coach is going to have a lot of provisos in the deal that demand and guarantee whatever the investment needs to be on any number of levels, infrastructure, facilities, recruiting. Because if those aren't in the contract, then you've got a weak candidate who really isn't going to do much to improve you as a football program. Yeah, they're between a bit of a rock and a hard place at UCLA. They're making more money out of the Big Ten, but basically they're trending to be Rutgers West.
Painful. Oh, well, screw them. That's the way it works. Back to us. Let's do the last 15 minutes straight of Florida State stuff. while we're on it, and the news has been good. Again, if you just joined us, we had technical issues at the station. I got into that earlier. Asked the folks in the chat what that's about. And we didn't want to not do something today. We didn't want to not do a show. It's football week. We're back on the field this Saturday. So we did this. We're doing an hour straight. Plus the bonus hour is already in the can, so you can hear that too. We did no ads this hour. We're just straight on, keeping on.
Well, other than maybe a gummy ad, but yeah, we're fine.
Oh, I do have to do a gummy ad read, which is just kind of fun. But we're not even going anywhere for that. I'll just be right here. You can just flash like pictures of rainbows and people floating while I do the gummy ad. Although if it's a CBD ad, nobody's floating.
Yeah, let me see if I can find something, hunt for something that'll make you laugh to that end.
What's the question? Which freshman on the team is the best shot of being? Oh, Win, I think, is eventually going to be the answer to that question. When we see him. When we see Win, I think it's going to be him because of the way the players talked about him and the way the players talked about. They identified several players that they thought would be impactful this year, and so did the coaches. And when we watched Florida State play against Alabama, and then obviously the following week against East Texas, you saw that the coaches were not fabricating their adoration for the players that they talked about when they had opportunities in the press availabilities, that those players were really as good as they were advertised. The Desir twins being two of them, for example. And we heard so much about this guy or that guy and how well they've played and that you should be excited, Earl Little, you name it. And they went on and on and on about that. So when we saw those guys play against Alabama, we're like, oh, they ain't kidding. Yep. They've assessed the talent properly. They've assessed the roster well. Well, if that's true, they really thought an awful lot of Kevin Wynn. Juju Wynn is his nickname. They thought a ton of him, and they went on and on about what he was and who he is, and then the players backed him up. Daryl Jackson told me directly at the ACC kickoff in Charlotte, he's strong like me, and he's only a freshman. He's that kind of country strong. And that was I'm quoting him. And he talked about how hand strength and size and all. I was like, wow, for Daryl to say that, that was interesting. So I have a feeling that Mr. Wynn is probably is going to be the answer to that question, although – I mean, Usman Kromah may be the answer to that question before we're all said and done here.
Yeah, I think Garrett's got a point about the twins, too, because they're so physically mature for true freshmen. That's a 3-year problem. Like, if I'm watching, because you're looking down the line at certain players for your rivals that are good. For example, the Tony kid that Miami has a receiver. Oh, man, that's going to be a player. Vernell Brown in Florida. I don't know if he'll stay there. If he might transfer out at the end of the year, but he's a legacy player there. And he's got that human joystick, you know, where you're like, oh, man, is this going to be a return specialist who's also a really good scat player? That could be potentially a problem. If I'm one of those two fans, sorry, Florida fans, while I'm looking up at the mountain that we have to climb, I see a couple of Desirs, and I go, oh, my God. And they've got Wynn, because I might know the recruiting game. So they've got 3 frontline guys that they can throw at us for the next 3 seasons who are exceptional. That's going to be a big-time problem. I'll give you a dark horse candidate, too. Sandman Thompson at center. He's already the second-team center, and Herb Hand loves Chavez Sandman Thompson. Mm-hmm. And that dude does look like he has a mature body for a freshman as well. I'm not saying he's got a better chance to be an NFL player than the guys we've listed. I'm just saying that quietly he's on the radar in the depth chart now, where they were worried about needing one of their starting 5 to be the backup center. They already feel like this true freshman is already good enough to be an NFL player.
Well, you've seen him when he's gotten into the game. He plays well.
He does.
He plays well. He's got great footwork, plays with great bend and leverage. He knows what he's doing. Tom, we may tear up in the future when we talk about Sandman, because it has been so long that we have recruited, developed, and watched a center of our own making, not a transfer, do something that is, I don't know, noteworthy, let alone spectacular. Buddy, well, you get the chills just thinking about it.
I know that offensive line recruiting is not an exact science. That's why so many players at the NFL level, when they say they're college, you're like, where? Where did that guy go? Sandman Thompson's industry rank was just short of 1,400th in the country. He's the lowest of 3 stars. But you might have hit one here. You might have gotten one. And good job if you did. He's trending very, very strongly in that direction.
Well, the problem for all recruiting sites, that includes at warchant.com and any other, they all would admit to you that within the industry, offensive and defensive line, in particular offensive line, is really difficult to get a handle on and to project what a player is, because they have such a distinct advantage against the competition that they play against, no matter where they are. Typically speaking, if you're an offensive lineman, you are bigger and stronger than anybody you face that we're going to watch you play against on film. And so you can get away with average footwork and mediocrity and still dominate the guy across from you. It's not normal for somebody to be 16, 17 years old and be 6'2", 322 pounds. But when they exist, they're going to beat the bejesus out of the guy across from them. And so you got a lot of tape of pure domination, but they're not going against light competition. And almost by definition, because they're so young, they've not had any real professional tutelage regarding footwork, especially if they're out on the edges like tackles. So it is really hard to watch a kid in high school do anything other than just physically throw people around because of their sheer size advantage. So projecting what they're going to be can be very, very tough. There are freaks of nature. I understand that. There are 5 stars that come out that the whole world goes, oh, yeah, that plays. And these days they seem to end up at Georgia. But anyhow, I got it. But for the most part, man, it's really, really hard to get right. So you're right, man. You can take a kid that's ranked 987th and suddenly you find out 2 years later, oh, we got gold. Amazing. Will Sperry be the first backup quarterback in the game again? I hope so.
They did put Brock's name over Sperry's this week in the OR, that they're trading the OR designators, and they have been more aggressive, the coaches have, language-wise, in terms of talking about how Brock was ramping up from an injury. I feel like if you put Sperry in second again, you signal that this is done. I think they're putting Brock in because they want to keep both guys heavily invested, knowing that Tommy Castellanos is one snap away from causing some problems at the quarterback position.
This is an easy one. They're going to try to balance growth and development with the satisfaction of getting opportunities as a backup player, because you don't want to lose your depth at quarterback. And, if Brock is routinely going in as the 3rd string quarterback all year long, I got to guess that he's out of here. But if it remains a quote-unquote competition, maybe he sticks around.
And let them both play well. There you go. Let them both play well and have this be a constant thing, and then hopefully it never comes up. But when it does, then you'll know who the true 2 was if Tommy's unavailable for a drive or a quarter or something like that.
Yeah, I think Sperry's the better talent, and I think Sperry is ultimately going to be the guy here over Brock Glenn. He may already be, but I think they'll play it close to the vest for the reasons that we just described. Good job, Tallahassee Sports Cards, becoming a member. Appreciate that very, very much. I also saw Spartanol is a new member. He's here all the time, but he's a new member. So that's cool. Appreciate that, Spartanol. And, yeah, we asked Trey's question as well about Sperry. So we're good. We're caught up. I'm in the non-starred land. You know what? This has turned out to be the best 3-week start to a season. You had a bye week mixed in there that we've had in a long time, man, just to be this excited. And it's made all the more special by the fact that we were so effing bad last year. So you feel it more.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know how to describe it other than how we did before. It's an inverted bowl game experience. Like, you play this one thing, and then you have a preseason of sorts to ramp up to the conference slate. And that's exactly how Florida State's playing here. You'll have one bye week in the middle of 8 consecutive conference games, because you go SEC, 2 out of conference lesser foes, Virginia, and then Florida ends your season. So it's all packed in the middle here. I love double bye week seasons in general. Allows everybody to catch their breath, not just that we're working in this industry, but the travel, if you've got back-to-back home games, pitchforks, people getting mad at each other, or everybody has a chance just to cool down, watch the rest of the country. And this year, that's been a really fun exercise, because you're seeing a lot of teams that have single digits next to their name do specific things in the football field that are not as good as what we've seen from Florida State so far. In a toughness department, communication department, specific segment groups, like, well, we're better than them at that, and they're ranked 4th in the country. Like, that has been a really fun part to this month of healing for us as Florida State fans.
Yeah, so you get the Kent game now, and that's a 3:30 kickoff. Then it's a Friday, September the 26th, Virginia game. TBD, while we're looking at times, is the next big one, and that's against Miami on October the 4th, obviously, and that's the one, Tom. That's give me a 7:30, please.
You know, typically for a game of this magnitude, you'll get 6-day options. But I wonder if, because the slate is so weak opposite us, if they don't just call that, like they did with Florida and Miami 2 weeks back when they said it'll be 7 o'clock or 7:30. We're not sure which of the primetime slots it's going to be in, but it's going to be in one of the primetime slots. I wouldn't be surprised if we got that answered. That is coming on Monday of next week.
That's right. Unless,
of course, we get 6-day option. But I think they're just going to announce and be done with it that it's a primetime game next Monday.
Karen, I'll answer your question in here while we're wrapping things up. How do you guys feel about Notre Dame being ranked with no wins? Well, obviously that's silly, right? They ought not be ranked. And here's why. You can easily, let's just go totally objective. Never mind the way Tom and I feel about that dump of a town and their rude fans. Let's just talk about the fact that, hey, the games have to matter. You lost both of them. Now, the point of that is, you could argue they've played 2 top 10 teams as they currently sit. That's true. They have. And they were close games, both of them. Yep. So Notre Dame's, you could argue, not a bad football team. I would argue Notre Dame's not a bad football team at all. I would argue Notre Dame is, in fact, definitely a top 25 team. And guess what? When you start 0-2, you get kicked out of the top 25. And then you spend the rest of the year earning and getting back into the good graces of those who watch the games and are polled. And if you're as good as we think you are through those 2 games that you lost but gave great effort in, you'll easily find your way back into the top 20 by winning said games. They may very well, if you look at their schedule, win all of the remaining games, at which point Notre Dame would be ranked in the top 10. If they win out from here and are 10-2 at the end of the regular season, Notre Dame is likely going to the playoff. Probably, if they win their remaining games. But, you know, we got to see them win some damn games. So I'd have them out of there by now.
Yeah, the loogie was aimed at USF. For Notre Dame to be ranked in USF not. They were just in the AP, I think they were 18th before the kickoff against Miami.
Yeah, and they get a loss to Miami, who's now number 4 in the country, and it's a lopsided loss. But meanwhile, you pounded Boise, who was ranked to start the year, and everybody thought was the best group of 5 team. And then number 2, you beat Florida in Gainesville. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I believe I got to check this to be certain of it. Let's see. LSU stayed stagnant. Okay, so they didn't get upgraded a spot for beating Florida, but they didn't get penalized for beating Florida. Because perhaps that win doesn't mean as much. If USF can drop from 18th totally out of the poll with 1 result against Miami, how much does a Florida win really mean at that point?
Yeah, so they're over, and that's the way it works. But Notre Dame will probably get back into that. Not probably, they will get back into that top 25. I do not concern myself with teams who have 2 losses, Tom. We've moved on from teams that have 2 losses. They're not on the same plane conversation as we're at right now as an undefeated team.
Speaking of plane, I did get you a couple of fun people floating things.
Oh, yeah, for my read. Yeah, let's see. What do you got? I want to see this before I begin to read. Because once I go to read, there we go. Oh, well done. All right, let me read what you need me to read. Life's been crazy, hasn't it? You want to unwind. Cornbread hemp CBD gummies will do just that for you. If you tried everything under the sun for peace of mind, time for you to try Cornbread Hemp's CBD gummies. Not as young as I once was. None of us are. Sometimes you need to go to the CBD gummy for restful sleep. I will say this, all products are third-party lab tested, USDA organic to ensure safety and purity. It is formulated to help relieve discomfort, stress, sleeplessness. They only use the best part of the hemp plant, the flower, the purest and most potent CBD available right now. Jeff Cameron Show listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/warchant. Use code warchant at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/warchant. Remember to use the code warchant. There you go. There you go. My dogs have come in. They heard me talking about cornbread hemp. They decided Dad's talking about the hemp. The floaty person's good.
What you got over there, Dad?
Yeah. No, they're like, Dad sounds like he's going to break.
Yep.
It's amazing how the dogs have figured it out, but they have. They're going to break. Dad's going to break. It means he'll love on us.
Yeah, I've got a binary relationship, which is the door is closed, and so therefore there's a protest outside of the door. It's not, oh, he might be done. It's what the hell is wrong with you closing the door? There are no restrictions here. There should be no restrictions. It should be an open policy.
Well, I keep an open door policy for the dogs until they start climbing on me, which you've seen. And I don't want to be Herb Street out here with my dogs climbing all over me every time I'm trying to do a broadcast.
Well, I've got beautiful hardwood floors in the main area of the penthouse here, but I got carpet in the rooms, and I'm not getting that. Oh, look at him go.
There's the big boy. That's the big boy.
He's ready.
All right, we got to say goodbye. We got to say goodbye, Mike. We got to say goodbye to everybody. Get down. Get down.
You going to take him with you to all the remotes like a certain national broadcaster?
No.
Indigo? You're going to take him to Corner Pocket?
I'm not.
No?
No, I'm not going to do that. Nor am I going to have them press the buttons or anything like that. I do love that they want to climb all over me, though. All right. Be good, everybody. This is fun. Glad we got to do a different style of show today. Straight through, no ads, all that good stuff. Hey, I'll tell you what, anybody out there, if you'd like to pay Tom and I $100,000 a year to have no ads and just do 1 hour like this straight through every day, our phones work.
We taking a pay cut? No, it'd be a lot more than that.
No, I'm saying if they wanted to do that hour, we'll find other sponsors to add to the figure, buddy. That's yeah.
What's going on here?
That's a talking point to get the game started. Boy. Anyhow, be good. Thank you, Tommy. See you later.
See you later.
Thanks, everybody. Bonus hour is also done.
Yep. And Wake Up Warchant 6 o'clock tonight right here on the channel.
There you go.